Why do you coach? Welcome to the Nick Anthony Show. I'm Anthony.
And I'm Nick.
How you doing, Nick?
I'm fantastic. This is great.
I'm glad to hear it. So I'm going to address this really to the audience first, right? And then I'll come back. And that is really our show is three different types of shows is what we have.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We have shows where it's our content, things that we created, we developed or whatever. We have shows, and that's like PKE, right?
Yeah.
Then there's shows like 4 Stages of Competence, episode 3, where it's not ours, but we talk about how we used it, how we've used it in our career, we introduce other people's ideas. And then there's a third type of show where we interview other people, right? Now, I'm catching you a little bit off guard today. The genesis of the show happened because you and I were talking regularly, right?
Yes.
Different things all the time. We would meet once a week. And we realized that we wanted to help coaches. We got to that point. But we got to that point by talking a lot about our own lives and our own situations and our own observations. And then we realized, we could help coaches this way. We should help coaches and could help them this way. So, but I want to have a conversation right now that you're completely unprepared for.
Completely. For the audience, I am completely unprepared.
There's been no prep.
There has been nothing. This was a absolute curveball.
Right. But
then I'm supposed to hit.
But no, you don't have to hit. But this is what happened. This is how the show got started.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to try to have that conversation with you now, right? That got us to the point to where you help me with things.
Okay.
Right? You help me understand things. I like to think every once in a while through our conversations, I help you.
Yeah. Well, yes. Hopefully that's been done.
So I had a conversation with a coach 48 hours ago, 2 days.
Okay.
Ago, right. And I don't know if I can even frame this the right way, but in the sport that I'm talking about, it's not like there's 10,000 kids to pick from.
Okay.
So there's wide variety, skill differential, that kind of stuff. It's hard, right? It's really hard. And so, what happens in this sport is almost all clubs, right, especially in this part of the country, if there's a player who is more advanced than people in their age, they keep them challenged by practicing them with older groups and having them practice up.
Okay.
And in my mind, it's kind of like swimming. Like even swimming, there's lots of swimmers around here. It's amazing how many great swimmers there are in the Philadelphia area. It's just amazing.
I'm not one of them. Go ahead.
But even then, they divide their practices by general skills, and then they divide them by lane by skills.
Okay.
So even if you can be practicing at the same time, they're grouped in ways in their lane so it works. Because you can't have somebody, lapping somebody every third or every fourth 50, right, and have it be good for either swimmer.
Okay.
Right? So you separate it out. So in this sport that I'm talking about is that one of the ways you do that is by having people play in different age groups.
Yes.
On their skills.
Yep.
Right. But I talked to this coach, and their organizational model to become an elite club, which they're not, right? But to become an elite club is they want to have all their players play together all the time, no matter what.
Okay.
Right. And so they don't want to move people up. So if you have somebody
They're trying to win.
Well, but they're not, because if they have anyway, but they're trying to win in the long run. They want to say, okay, these 12-year-old kids, right? We want them playing together for the next 6 years so that by the time they're in the 17, 18 area,
Yes.
right, that they've been playing together all this time and they know what each other's going to do all the time.
Yeah.
To me...
I'm going to push back on that in a second, but go ahead.
Okay, push back.
No. I mean,
because I can't get it. I can't wrap my head around that.
Well, the only thing I'm going to push back on that is that that's not the way of the world right now. They're not you are not playing with people for that long a time anymore. Whether it's the pros and there's free agency and people are moving, whether it's college and the transfer portal, you don't play with people, the same people, very long these days.
Right.
And then even I'll go high school, a little less, but people are transferring in high school just to play,
Right.
with different people. So I'm not sure. Yeah, that might be helping a club, be better, but I don't know if it's preparing them for the next phases of playing, which is you got to adapt quickly to new teammates. That's all. That was my only pushback.
No. I mean, so the reason I wanted to talk to you about it is because I don't get it. Because I don't think you can create an elite club unless you challenge every player appropriately.
Yeah.
So if you're taking your players who could be playing older and you're saying, no, I want you to play with these players who aren't as advanced, right? Then you're not putting your best players in challenging positions for them to grow.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, going back to an earlier show, what's the mission of the club, right? And communicating that out. We had that discussion a little bit, and it may not be clear.
We had it a lot, actually, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it may not be clear. So that I don't want to say pushback, because I think in the certain goals of that club, that makes sense. If that's their goal, I gave you a little bit of what my take is on it now, but then I also would put the take on it that it's easier for the coaches
to do what?
To keep them together. Right. I mean, like, you're coaching the same kids, and you're trying, and so instead of having to build it over, this short period of time before you get into your matches, your games, whatever, you actually have all this runway to do it. Right. So you keep doing it. So for coaches, I would say that's probably easier. It's easier to coach the same team, over and over again, that you don't have to explain why we're doing drills, after year 3 or year 4. You don't have to, kind of do certain things, right? So there's a sense of me that is it, and this is extreme, the word, but is there a laziness with that, where they're not challenging, the coaches aren't challenging themselves to figure out, okay, well, Johnny is now at U15, he's no longer with U13 because he's so good.
Right.
And so I got, what are we going to do when Johnny isn't here? Johnny always got the ball, and he's always the one who cleared the ball, if I'm talking lacrosse,
right,
et cetera, because he was bigger, stronger, faster. What do we do now? So I do think there's an easiness in it as you were talking, and I'm trying to, kind of figure out some feedback or some interpretation of that. So, and let's say it's easier, but I actually think it's probably it could be more fun too. It's like, wow, I'm going to have these kids for 6 years like that. I can develop them, the camaraderie, the feeling of being a part of a team. So there's a positive, man, like, I would go to war with these people. They're going to be friends with me for life. And we can see what we can achieve, which I think is a pretty cool thing. Like I said, I don't love the fact that people are transferring and they, or they leave and for whatever, it's difficult for them, or, Johnny is getting the ball so much, so I don't like that. I'm going to leave because I want the ball. So I think there are a bunch of different interpretations of it, and but it is actually an interesting topic.
But I even asked the person. I said, so you're prioritizing team development over individual development?
Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
And the answer was, I think we can do both.
Okay.
And then I asked, it's like, well, wait, you look at soccer, there's 14-year-olds, they're getting pro contracts.
Yes.
So you're going to take a 14-year-old who's getting a pro contract and put him with a 13U person who is just learning how to kick.
Well, what was the response? Or did you just say that? Did you say that in your internal voice?
No, I said it out loud.
Okay.
I said it right. And I didn't really feel like I got a good answer. But again, this is just the coach I'm talking to.
Yeah.
It's not, right? It wasn't a client. It wasn't, right? So it was like, I have to be a little bit diplomatic, but I did ask that question, and I used soccer as an example. And they were like, no, we can develop both. We know we can do both. But I go back to the goal setting thing. It's like, okay, you want to be an elite program, and that's their coach's words. We want to be an elite program. What does that mean? What do you mean by an elite program, right? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to go back to water polo. I know, but there's this guy in Pittsburgh, right, who's produced 3 players that have made it to UCLA, 2 men and a female, right? But they don't win a lot because he doesn't have a big enough club. There's just not enough people in Pittsburgh. But is he an elite program? In some people's definition, yes. If you get players to play at UCLA,
Well, define the goal.
define
in this case, define elite. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So I don't know that they have a definition of elite. And so because of how they're prioritizing, and they're really not challenging the best players by having them play in their appropriate group, right? And it's not like swimming. You're going to have multiple ages in the same pool working. The same ages working at totally different speeds in the same pool at the same time, right? So it's not an age thing. But in this sport, kind of an age thing, right? It does matter. Age matters in this one because it's not lanes, right? And so, but they're holding basically some of the better players back. So people are leaving the club because it's a job of the parent, right, to make sure their kid is challenged and learning and pushed to their fullest potential. And, kind of to your point is, even if they play together as club all that time, they're all playing for different schools.
Mm-hmm.
They play against each other, even in this sport, different schools. And then when they go off to college, they're not going to be playing with these people. So nowadays, if you're a parent or even a player, it's like, you're going to leave.
Yeah.
I don't know how they're going to become, this is still a question. I'm not asking it very well, but I don't see the vision of how you're going to become elite if you're not challenging all your players appropriately. I'm not saying leave anybody behind, because somebody might be totally new to the sport at 15, 16 years old, and they still have huge potential.
Yeah.
Right. But if you go have that person play at that moment with an 18-year-old or a group of 18-year-olds that have been playing for 6 years, and they're all beasts, and I mean beasts in a positive, complimentary way, they might get turned off to the sport. Who knows? Right?
Yeah.
But so you've got to put them in appropriate situations where they're all appropriately challenged, and that person new to the sport in a year or two might be a beast themselves because they have that kind of potential if they're put in the right way. So you're not challenging really anybody in an appropriate way.
Yeah. So I would say, going back to some of the goal setting and discussions, is like, what were the rules, right? The rules were we're not going to move anyone up. So that's in defining whatever the goal is as of being an elite club. And I think that obviously needs to be defined in itself, but that our rules that we're not going to do is this. Now, is the other rule that we're not going to let kids play and do things on their own, i.e. go to an, quote unquote, some kind of elite camp or I don't know, go to an area of the country for 2 weeks, or go to another country for a few weeks to get to match yourself. And, we're not going to create those, they
don't like that either.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think some of it is just defining what are those rules. But I mean, I'd say in general, I don't know, there's a lot of, utopia and, rainbows and unicorns and staying together and being like, that's really cool. And I think, let's dumb it down to like a more of a local team that isn't mixing necessarily from so many different high schools or so many different schools or regions or counties, or even states, right? That's probably pretty cool, right? You keep your neighborhood or this group together all the way through whatever level. I think that probably has life, maybe like, I don't know, pretty cool thing. But
that's what you just described. It's a wonderful thing.
Yes.
That's different than trying to become an elite club.
Yes. Yes.
Like if
totally. I mean, that's like becoming an elite, I don't know, school, right? Really, you know what I mean? Like, in a sense.
But I will say elite schools, right? Like my kids my kids do okay, right? But there are kids that are off the charts in math, right? For example, math is like an easy one for schools. And those kids that are off the charts in math, they're not studying at their grade. They're up multiple levels. I mean, I'm sure your wife, Mo, right, who's a school teacher, math school teacher, I'm sure she knows kids in her school that they're above grade level.
Yeah, she knows her husband who's like that. Go ahead. No, just kidding.
But you know what I mean? So you don't hold the kid back and think that we're building an elite school by not challenging that kid who's ready to do math 2 years ahead.
Yeah.
Right? What good does that do that kid? And what good does that do the rest of the class? It doesn't really help anybody.
Yeah.
And so I don't understand even, like, to be an elite club means that you want to draw people in, right?
Yeah.
That's part, right? You want to keep getting better and make it attractive. And it's driving away some of the better players from this club.
Well, I would also say this, and I'm not sure which way I'm going to fall on an argument in this, but sometimes you have to learn to be in the best kids on this situation you're describing, right? They're learning to be an alpha, right? Or they are an alpha because it's by nature. Now that could change as they get bigger, stronger, faster. The other kids do, but the other kids aren't learning to be an alpha if they're going to grow into that. And if you don't move them up, like the alpha, like, you know, if I'm going to keep using that terminology, they're not learning how to be a role player, because that's where they, you know, they're, you know, bigger, stronger, faster, and they can, you know, shoot it really hard, and they're scoring and whatever it is in whatever sport. When they go to that skill that they're elite at, that's allowing them to be an alpha at a certain level. When they go to the next level, that skill may not be elite.
Yeah, that's your fourth grade. I'm the best fourth grade running back.
Yeah, like God, you know.
Yeah.
But I see it all the time. Is like kids who are stars at a certain age, and then when they go to the next level, do they have the E, or have they been taught the E, or even the K? In a lot of ways, in terms of knowledge, can they adapt and be a role player, or be a different, or be like a sidekick? I love to use Batman and Robin. You know, can they be a Robin because they've always been a Batman? Right. And I do like I say that all the time. I used to talk about it with my kids. Is, you know, yes, that person, that player that you're, you know, on your team might be your best player in high school. But when they get to college, those skills that they have, scoring, just can really do, that may not translate. So now they have to play defense. They have to set screens or whatever. They have to be complementary. Yeah. And they may not be able to do it. And, you know, but the kid who was doing that, complementary and doing all that stuff, they actually might be able to do it at the next level. And because of that, they may be the more successful next level player than the person was better than them at this level. And I don't have great examples, I guess, of that off the top of my head, but I think about that all the time. Even when we've talked about the draft and the NFL draft or the NBA draft, it's like, yes, that person is elite at doing that, but is that an elite skill at this level? And if it's not, do they have the other skills? Do they translate to the next level? Right.
Yeah, I was talking to a coach, actually, D1 coach, a couple of weeks ago, and he says on film, when he watches film, he looks for the player that doesn't show up in the stats, that does all the right things. And that's what I'm hearing you say, right? Like, and I'm going to use water polo again. This was actually a water polo coach, this one right now. I'm good. So he said, like, somebody passes to the person that scores, so that person scores, gets on the stat sheet. That person who got the assist shows up as an assist. But the person that made the play happen was the person on the other side who saw that opening and passed it over all the defenders over the other side and really set up that play. He's looking for that player.
Yep.
Right? That player did not show up on the stat sheets at all. So that goes.
We like to call it the hockey assist.
Which is what?
Well, in hockey, you know, you can have 2 assists in hockey.
Actually, I didn't know that.
Yeah, ice hockey. Yeah. So it's often I just had the conversation the other day with a coach where they said they don't get the points, but if they kept hockey assists, they would always get they'd be one of our leading scorers.
Right.
So it's just to throw a little terminology.
No, so you're right. So what I heard you say is, so the really good players right now need to move up so they know how to go get hockey assists.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah. Right? Or continue to be an alpha if they're that good.
Right.
Yeah.
But the alpha, because how many kids are superstars in their neighborhood and they're superstars in college? Shoot that number.
It wasn't me.
Okay. but you get my point. And then, but what I also heard you say, and you kind of blew past this, but I want to go back to it. You also said that by having the best players be so dominant, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but this is what I heard, so correct me if I got it wrong, is you also might be stifling other players because they don't get opportunities to be in a position to try to be enough.
Yes. I would. Yes. You did hear that correctly.
Okay. So, all right, this is great.
Yeah.
This is this is what I need. I needed to hear that because it made so little sense to me. It didn't make sense. It didn't make sense to me at all. I just put it like that. I'm like, what could I be missing?
Yeah.
Because the guy's a smart guy. He knows his sport, all this kind of stuff. It's like, what?
Yeah.
What? And so it goes back to our goal
That's
setting.
interesting. Yeah.
Well, it goes back to our goal setting thing, and that is you have to really, really know what the goal is. It has to be precise and specific. And to your point is, what's the definition of elite? And your whole point in that episode, when we did that episode, is, and how do you measure it?
Mm-hmm.
How is it measured, right? Is it measured by how many kids you get to elite colleges? Is it measured by wins? How do you measure elite?
Yeah.
And I know, to be candid, I didn't really ask that question again because it's not a client. It's it's just somebody I know I was talking to. So anyway, so this is great.
Yes.
Thank you. This is very helpful. I'm going to go back to our audience for a second. This is really, these kinds of conversations is how the show started.
Yeah.
So, thanks, Nick. Appreciate it, man.
Of course.
We'll be right back to the Nick Anthony Show.
Today's show is brought to you by John Gannon Music, genre-exploding music for your daily adventures. Visit johngannon.bandcamp.com. That's johngannon.bandcamp.com, and look for it on all music streaming platforms.
Welcome back to the Nick Anthony Show.
So, Nick, you're a good sport. I tell you, and that conversation we had a couple of weeks ago meant a lot to me because it really brought us back to our roots and how the show started. And I know I said it, but it started because you had a question for me or I had a question for you. We would just end up talking about things. And then we realized that there might be more of a theme to it than us just talking. So that session of Ask Nick where we talked about, right, that we just did, where the audience just watched, is it's really special. It feels really good. And talking about feeling something good, can I read something to you?
Sure.
A letter that I got from a fan, actually. And this is from Judy in Arizona.
Okay.
And she wrote, and it's a little bit long, but I think it's worth reading. Be a fountain, not a drain. Amazing concept for everyone. I was so excited to watch that episode and realize we can be that every day, no matter our profession or in retirement. I realized I do that with people of my age, 85, and all ages in grocery stores, doctor's offices, passing on sidewalks. Now I'll pat myself on the back and not be sad that I am no longer lead activities in senior centers as part of my profession, as a fountain of energy and encouragement for them. As a fountain of energy, I can move around town and let the droplets fall on those I meet. Thank you both for imagery of fountain and encouraging water. I see myself as encouraging water. As I see myself as being. Coaches will benefit tremendously, as will all who tune into your site.
Wow.
So, when we did the show, right, we are very much believers. I know that we very much believe that people learn life lessons from sports all the time, right? Win, lose, draw, never even compete, just the training piece of it. I know that's something that a value that you and I both possess, right? Or we share. And we're doing the show because we believe that we can help a coach, or be helping people that we'll never even meet. If we can help one coach with one thing be better, right? So I wanted to read that to you because really your fountain and drain, imagery it's not just coaches. This is what we were kind of hoping for, is it would go beyond coaches.
Yeah.
And we'd start talking about life lessons, and people would tune in that just weren't sports people, right? But they learned other things, and it's already happened,
Yeah.
right? We're impacting people around town in a town in Arizona. I'm not even sure what town in Arizona, but
Yeah.
but we're helping those people because Judy from Arizona now thinks of herself as a droplet. And
Yeah.
in a lot of ways, we're droplets, right? Because we're here because we had coaches that we learned lessons from.
Yeah. No, that's pretty amazing. You haven't shared that with me.
I know. That's I cut you off guard. I should have warned you. I should have warned the audience.
This is Ask Nick.
Yeah.
Throw Nick curveballs is what this is.
I know. That's what this whole
Yeah.
episode is throw Nick curveballs. But yeah, so it is. It's very satisfying.
Yeah. So I don't want to take credit for the exact imagery, right? Because it's not mine per se, but I do want to take credit. We want to take credit for presenting it, and
Right.
and the way we presented it. But I do think it's so simple, right? It is so simple, but it's so impactful. I love hearing that. I'm telling you, when I walk around our building at Drexel, the number of people, randomly after something that say it is amazing.
Right.
So that's really cool.
But I got a lot out of the first segment of this show as well by talking to you, and that wasn't about their drain imagery. So what we're going to do, and this part of this we talked about, that is we're going to have a regular ongoing series within our show called Ask Nick. And so I'm encouraging our audience to send in questions, send in things that you want to ask Nick. Nick, I know, I'm talking to you right now. That's going to make you feel a little awkward maybe, but you just have such a wealth of knowledge and a wealth of perspective, not just as a parent, not just as an athlete, not just as a coach, not just as an administrator, but to combine all of those kinds of things. And you help coaches all day long. And I think why you have such a big fan base in your community, because I've run into people that know you and you have a big fan base. But it's because you don't look at just like the sports perspective of things. You look at the whole person all the time. So I'm going to encourage our audience, like if you have a question that you're not hearing on the show, you have a question, life lesson kind of thing, if you have a question about coaching or sports yourself or whatever, send it into the show. What Judy did is she did what we want people to do, and that is go to the website, fill out the form, and then it comes to us and we get it.
Yeah.
Right. And so do it that way. Right. I've been getting a bunch of emails as well from like direct emails and texts, and those are all helpful. But this way, it's part of the show, and it'd just be great if people do that. So if you have questions for Nick, we're gonna have a series within the series called Ask Nick.
I think even talking to my mother.
Why is that?
There's just too many compliments. I mean, I think that's what my mom looks at me that way.
No, so I was going to save this for a different episode, but I'll go ahead and tell it now. So I was in the Outer Banks in North Carolina. My family and I, we spent a lot of time down there, right? And I was in a surf shop, crawl a surf shop, right?
Yeah.
And I can't remember if I had a Drexel thing on or he had a Drexel thing on or whatever, but there was this guy there that was somehow we started talking about Drexel, and he played lacrosse at Drexel, right? And I said, oh, and this is back when I was helping you informally, right?
Yep.
In the school. I was like, oh, I work with Nick Getty. He goes, yes, I love Nick Getty. He's such a great guy. Da, 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 da. I was like, wow. And then his girlfriend came in and had the same, and he was like, he works with Nick. And it was like, oh, wow. And she was a female lacrosse player.
Yeah, that's a cool story.
Was that?
That's a cool story. I mean, for me.
So like, I'm in North Carolina with people meeting people for the first time I don't know, and I'm running into Nick fans. So I think that happens. I said this already, so I'm repeating myself from just a few minutes ago, because you have such a great perspective and you take the time to look at it from the person's perspective, not just an athlete's perspective or not just the coach's perspective, but from the personal perspective. So again, I encourage everybody, right? If you have questions, anything, send them in, go through the website if you don't mind, and we'll ask Nick. I enjoy asking you questions.
Yeah, I appreciate that. That'll be fun because maybe we'll stay with let's not prepare Nick. I mean, you and I've talked about this. I do think that's a good, in some ways, it's a very honest and authentic way to ask those questions.
Right.
It's kind of like what I'd live day to day, kind of. So, no, that'll be fun.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
So just so the audience, most of our shows, we prepare hours, right, for the show. But this whole episode, the first segment and
Yeah.
this segment was, Nick, just trust me, let me just roll with it kind of thing.
Nah, that'll be fun.
Anyway,
Thanks, Anthony.
all right, thanks. Thanks for watching the show today. I had a great time talking with Nick, as I always do. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Visit us on social media. Also, go to our website if you've got comments, questions, you want to call me an ugly name, thenickanthonyshow.com. There's a place to do it there. Give us your email address so you never miss an episode. Thank you very much. We'll see you next show.